Hi guys, welcome to the next lesson in our cardiovascular lessons. Remember, we're taking all those individual components that we taught you about, now we're integrating them into finally integrating them into something of a picture of how the system works. And we're building one piece upon another. So in the last lesson, I talked to you guys about the heart and how it functions as a pump, and now we're going to add the vascular system onto that. We're going to see how the two interact in a very general way. Okay, so I have a few questions for you before we get started. If I have a mean, and you're going to understand why I asked these later on in the lesson. If I have a mean arterial pressure of 102, a central venous pressure of 2, and a cardiac output of 5. So this is the venous pressure right in the great vessels of your chest. This is the pressure in your aorta. Okay, cardiac output's 5. What is the total peripheral resistance? And if you want to pause this and think about it, please do so. And then now I'm going to show you the answer. 20. Here's how we know that. Ohm's law. 90% of life is showing up. 90% of the rest is Ohm's law. Change in pressure equals flow times resistance. Okay, if mean arterial pressure minus the central venous pressure gives you the delta P across my cardiovascular system as a whole, the whole system. Cardiac output is 5. This minus this is 100. 100 divided by 5 gives you a total peripheral resistance of 20. Okay, so total peripheral resistance is 20 in these units. Harken back to the lesson, the last lesson, the heart is a pump lesson. The primary determinant of cardiac output is heart rate, stroke volume, or total peripheral resistance. And now we'll talk about it. It is heart rate, very good. Cardiac output is equal to heart rate times stroke volume. This has nothing to do with that. Stroke volume, it has less of an effect than heart rate. Heart rate can be increased almost 5 times, 4.5 times. This can only be increased over a range of about 1.5 times, okay? And finally, cardiac output from the right side of the heart is normally greater than the heart, less than the heart, or the same as the left heart. Okay, on the right, is it less than the left heart, greater than the left heart, or the same as the left heart? Okay, it is the same. You have to know that, right? If the output from my right heart was 6, and the output from my left heart was 5, I'd be pumping extra blood in with every beat into my lungs until they blew up like a water balloon and I busted, which I don't really want to do. Okay, the two have to be the same at steady state. Okay, you have to be pumping as much out of the right side as the left. Okay, and I know why it's confusing. The walls of the right are thinner than the walls on the left, but in the end, the output is the same. The pressures are lower in the lungs, so you can have thinner walls on the right-hand side. All right. Cardiac output, heart rate times stroke volume. Cardiac output is the same on both sides at steady state. And here is our relationship between filling, meaning these are all indications of preload, and stroke volume, all right? And we can also change the inotropic state or the contractility to change stroke volume. We can change the afterload can change stroke volume, okay? All right, whatever the cardiac output, it is returned to the heart via the venous system. Makes sense, right? So what we call the venous system, the really big veins that are feeding into the heart, the great veins of the thorax and the right atrium, we call those the central venous compartment, including the atrium. Okay, they're the big veins in the atrium. Okay, the other veins are the peripheral venous compartment, and they feed into the central venous compartment, which feeds into the ventricles of the heart. Okay. And if you were to measure the pressures, you would find that the pressures are slightly higher here than they are here. And the pressures in the central venous compartment are slightly higher here than they are in the ventricle during diastole. And you know that because blood is flowing from high pressure to low pressure. All right? All right. Venous return is proportional to the pressure gradient between the peripheral venous compartment and the central venous compartment, and inversely proportional to the resistance. We know that because of Ohm's law. All right. I obviously did that at a time when I had more time on my hands than I knew what to do with. Those days are long gone. Anyway, this is Ohm's law. 80% of life is showing up. 80% of the rest is Ohm's law. All right? 90% of life is showing up. 90% is Ohm's law. Make up your own percentages. Blood flows as a result of the fact that I have a difference in pressure between 2 points, here and here. The bigger the difference in pressure, the bigger the flow, and the higher the resistance, the lower the flow. Okay? Filling of the right ventricle is determined by pressure in the right atrium. So the higher the pressure in the right atrium, the more blood is flowing into the right ventricle, which means the bigger the filling. Okay? So here's sort of a key point. The circulatory system between the right ventricle and the left atrium is, in a normal human being, a passive conduit of flow of blood. That means that, another way of saying that is that those vessels don't participate in reflex regulation of pressure. Okay? So the autonomic nervous system isn't constricting and dilating blood vessels in your lungs. All right? So what that means is that changes on the right reflect changes on the left directly. So increased right pressure in the right atrium means that you have also increased pressure in the left atrium proportionally. Okay? So what that means is that if you're measuring left cardiac output or left stroke volume, you can reliably use right atrial pressure as an indication of the degree of filling on the left. Because what's happening is you're getting more filling on the right. There's really nothing that is going to alter that relationship in between the right ventricle and the left atrium. And so what happens is changes in filling on the right are reflected by changes in filling, changes in filling on the left are reflected by changes in filling on the right. You might say, so what? It is normal for us to usually characterize changes in stroke volume on the left with changes in atrial pressure on the right. So this could be right atrial pressure here, and this could be left stroke volume here, and the relationship holds. Okay? And you will often find that that relationship is diagrammed that way, and I'm going to tell you why that's true over the course of this lesson and why that's important. But this, just because I'm talking about left stroke volume, I don't have to be talking about left atrial pressure, because changes in left atrial pressure are also reflected by changes in right atrial pressure. So this could easily be pressure on the right, and this could still be stroke volume on the left. All right, that's all I got for this lesson. Thank you for your attention, or that's all I've got for this video. Thank you for your attention, and we can move on to the the next video when you're ready.